We'll know tonight how the government plans to bring down inflation, ease the cost of living crisis and build more houses. The Treasurer has announced he's gone black to black with a $9.3 billion surplus in the budget. But where does that leave millions of struggling households? For more, I'm joined by the Australia Institute Executive Director, Richard Denniss. Richard, this will be the Treasurer's second surplus in a row. But in this current climate, how important is a surplus?
I think for the government, politically, a budget surplus is very important. It's a long time since we've had successive surpluses in Australia, and Jim Chalmers will be pretty happy with that result. But in terms of the economy overall, we're starting to see it slow down. There are real cost of living pressures for people, and there's even talk of fear of recession. So it's a tight high wire act for the Treasurer. On the one hand, he wants the political bonus of a surplus. At the other time, there's a lot of people out there looking for support, and him crowing about a big surplus for him is going to make a lot of people saying, why can't he do more for them?
Well, the Treasurer says his modelling shows inflation will be back below 3% by the end of the year. So if this is realised, what does it mean for everyday households?
Look, no one's got a crystal ball, but inflation is heading in the right direction, and the Treasurer's optimism about inflation is backed up by a lot of other people. And to be clear, the main consequence of that is that it means it's more likely the Reserve Bank will cut people's interest rates. So people with mortgages should expect interest rate relief if inflation continues to fall. And of course, inflation means the price of goods and services. And if goods and services, if food and groceries and petrol, if they're not rising so fast, then that's less pressure on household budgets each week.
So if this really is the cost of living budget, what would you expect to see as key measures?
I think we'll see a wide range of income supports, possibly things like rental assistance and income supplements for low-income earners. The government has ruled out increasing the unemployment benefit, which is very low and needs to be increased. But in addition, there's a lot of opportunity for the government, if they want to take it, to lower people's cost of living by doing things like lowering the cost of medicine, lowering the cost of going to the doctor, indeed lowering the cost of going to university, because it's actually the government itself that sets a lot of these prices. So people seem to think that when governments spend money, it will cause inflation. But if they do it well, if they target it well, governments can spend more money pushing prices of childcare, university education and medicines down. That's good for lowering inflation, and it's very good for people suffering in a cost of living crisis.
Let's talk more about those unemployment payments that you just mentioned. Should job seeker and youth allowance be increased?
Oh, look, it should. It's hard to find an economist that disagrees with the need to do that. The welfare sector's been calling for it for a long time, and indeed this government actually set up a new advisory panel recently, and that advisory panel suggested a significant increase in unemployment benefits. But the brutal reality is there's not a lot of votes in increasing unemployment benefits, and the brutal reality is some people think, why should we do more to help those with the least? Well, the reality is unemployment benefits are very low in Australia, and if people think it's hard to afford rent or afford groceries on a full-time wage, imagine trying to do it on the unemployment benefit.
But Richard, won't all of this spending you're talking about stimulate the economy so much that it will increase inflation?
Look, it could, but to be clear, the government is running a small surplus here. That is, it's taking more out of the economy than it's injecting in. So that's not inflationary. And as I said before, if the government targets its expenditure well, then by lowering the price of medicine, by lowering the price of going to the doctor, by lowering the cost of going to uni, government spending can actually reduce inflation. But if people are worried about inflation, if people are worried about the government pumping too much money into the economy, they should probably focus their attention on the enormous Stage 3 tax cuts. Now, to the government's credit, they modified those tax cuts, made them bigger for low-income earners and smaller for high-income earners, but we're about to give very big tax cuts, over $4,000 a year, to the highest income earners in Australia. And I think anyone who's worried that unemployment benefits or childcare support might inflationary, I think those people should probably worry more about giving $4,000 a year to people earning over $200,000.
How can the government maintain a surplus while boosting income support, providing free childcare and lowering higher education costs that you speak of?
Well, I mean, an easy thing to do would be, for example, to abolish fossil fuel subsidies. The government spends around $14 billion a year supporting fossil fuel use and production in Australia. Here we are trying to tackle climate change while subsidising the production and use of fossil fuels. So if the government wants to collect more revenue, there are plenty of good ideas around. Getting rid of the fossil fuel subsidies would work. Maybe we could buy one less nuclear-powered submarine, or we could delay those very generous tax cuts for very high-income earners. Budgets really are about choices, they're about priorities, and if a government can afford tax cuts for very high-income earners, then obviously it can afford to look after low-income earners as well. But you can't afford to do everything. Budgets are about choices. All
right, Richard Denniss from the Australia Institute, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching. If you'd like to keep up to date with all our latest research and work, sign up to our newsletter. Delivered every fortnight, it includes behind-the-scenes updates from Richard Denniss, an exclusive cartoon from Judy Horacek, details for our upcoming events and webinars, as well as explainers, graphs, and not to mention the latest cutting-edge research and analysis from the team here on the key issues that are facing Australia. Click the button on your screen to check it out.